cherished listeners. So I think you may have followed some of the initial comments the minority side have made, and particularly myself, regarding the budget statement. And this morning at 11 o'clock, the minority is holding a press conference to respond extensively to the issues raised by the finance minister. The finance minister presented his first budget, and so ordinarily I wish he had not presented something that gives us the opportunity to critique or point out the kind of things we are pointing out, because we would have expected that he will come clean on certain things and also present a budget that is quite coherent in terms of the policies. But unfortunately, he got himself entangled in some misinformation, layout of data that is inaccurate, and we did not see honesty on his part. And also some of the things he talked about, especially on the tax aspects. I mean, why would you want to scrap or abolish a tax that is not existent? So by and large, he presented the economic policy of the president. Much as we feel that there are significant issues that ought to be addressed, he has met the constitutional requirement and presented the budget. But there are a lot of things in the budget that ought to be talked about. When I'm analyzing budgets of this nature, I want to see policy coherence. Okay. You know, you may also be interested in seeing a budget that brings creativity and also some ingenuity into the whole governance architecture and structure. Unfortunately, after his several years of experience on the Finance Committee in Parliament, and also as a former Deputy Finance Minister, did not come across as somebody who has control over the things that he said and even the policies that he's bringing out. And if you indulge me, I'll walk you through a few things.
Okay, let's hear that.
First and foremost, the minister gives an indication that he's going to scrap about 6 taxes. So he makes mention of the Emissions Levy. He makes mention of the withholding tax on lotto winnings. He makes mention of VAT on motor vehicle insurance. Yeah. He makes mention of the E-Levy and the 1.5 withholding tax on gold exports. Right. These are 6. So anybody listening to the minister say, wow, he's going to abolish 6 taxes. And you will be happy to have a government present a budget that is going to abolish 6 taxes. And although we have seen governments that have done more, because President Akufo-Addo, in his first budget in 2017, I remember very well, 3rd March 2017, when then Finance Minister Kenneth Freta presented a budget. At that time, President Akufo-Addo abolished or reduced 17 different taxes, unprecedented in the history of this country. Ghanaians were happy about that. So we would have expected them to do more now. But even if they were going to stay put on the 6, one would have some kind of respite to say that yes, 6 taxes are going. But unfortunately, 3 of the 6 taxes the minister mentioned are not taxes that Ghanaians are paying. Nobody in this country pays emissions levy. Nobody. The previous government, led by President Akufo-Addo, never charged any Ghanaian a tax or a levy called emissions levy. So if it is not there, why do you seek to abolish it? So it's clear deception. okay, trying to find some sweetness in the budget to let people feel good with the mindset that, oh, this is the burden on us. Atufosin is going to take it away from us. But as I speak with you, not a single Ghanaian pays emissions levy. It has never, and I repeat, it has never been charged on anybody.
So you're suggesting that the Act 1112, which was enacted in February of 2024,
never came to effect.
Never came to effect.
Never.
Okay.
Never came to effect. Then 2, he talks about VAT on motor insurance vehicle. Nobody.
Vehicle insurance.
Vehicle
insurance.
Yeah. Nobody in this country pays VAT on motor or vehicle insurance. What President Akufo-Addo did was rather to exempt all non-life insurance from VAT. President Akufo-Addo exempted every Ghanaian. He never charged every Ghanaian VAT on vehicle insurance. So today, if you come to say you will abolish the VAT on vehicle insurance, what exactly are you trying to say? It is not there. Nobody pays VAT on vehicle insurance. So why did the minister say he's going to abolish it? Then 3 is what the confusion he himself created that has caused some confusion based on what former Minister Amin Adam said. Atufosin said, Mr. Speaker, we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings, otherwise referred to as betting tax. This is English. If you say you will abolish 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings, that is exactly what you mean. Is that not it? The alternative name you give it is just something to embellish it for people to see that, oh, this is another name. Now, the minister exposes himself by displaying a lack of understanding of 2 things. First, the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings is not the same as the sport betting tax that we know.
Okay.
They are 2 different things. They all come under the Income Tax Amendment Act 2023, Act 1096.
That's right.
Under that, we have the sport betting tax. We have the 20% tax on gross gaming revenue. And then we have the 10% withholding tax on lotto winners. 3 different things. The 10% sport betting tax and the 20% gross gaming revenue, tax on gross gaming revenue, are under the Gaming Commission. And then the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings is under the National Lottery Authority. Now, the ones under the Gaming Commission are what Ghanaians pay. So every Ghanaian, a young man, a young woman, all of us, if you watch Manchester United, Arsenal, whatever, and you stick, and you win, and you get your income, government deducts 10% from that sport betting.
Okay.
That is the tax we all know. That during the 2024 campaign, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who led the NPP, said he will abolish it if he wins. Mahama said he was going to abolish the sport betting tax. Bawumia said he was going to abolish. We all know that the sport betting tax is charged. What we know it's not charged is the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings. That is under National Lottery Authority.
Okay.
So if the minister indeed meant to abolish the sport betting tax, knowing that there are 3 different taxes, he should have been very clear in his statement to say that Mr. Minister, we will abolish the 10% sport betting tax. He never said that. Rather, he says we will abolish the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings, into brackets, betting tax. Then former Finance Minister Amin said, you don't know what you're talking about. The 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings is different from the sport betting tax we know. And that 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings was never charged, was never implemented. So if indeed the betting tax you are referring to is the same as the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings, then we never implemented that. That is what Amin Anta told him. And everybody agrees with us that the President Kufuor government never charged the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings. So exactly what kind of betting tax is Atto talking about? And you see something. The reason why we feel Atto is not committed to abolishing the betting tax is the fact that, you remember, in the initial stages of his presentation, he listed 10 acts that he is presenting to Parliament to seek amendments to.
That's right.
Which will give effect for some of the abolitions and then some of the introductions that he wants to make. That's as far as the tax is concerned. Of all the 10 acts that Atto presented to Parliament to amend, to give him the chance to introduce a new tax or amend or abolish another tax, the act that gave birth to the sport betting tax, which is the Income Tax Amendment Act 2023 at 1096, was not part of it. Okay. So if you are presenting 10 acts to Parliament to seek to amend those acts, to give you the chance to abolish some taxes, and you say you want to abolish the sport betting tax, but the act that gave birth to the sport betting tax, you don't present it among the 10 acts that you want amendment to, are you telling us you're committed to abolishing the sport betting tax?
Now, for emphasis and reference, I go to the 2025 budget. I think this is actually captured on the very first page. The acts you mentioned. So it says, Mr. Speaker, with this budget, I am also seeking a review of the following acts to support the policies of government aimed at stabilizing the economy and promoting inclusive growth. First one on this, Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011, Act 815, Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund Act 2014, 877, Minerals Income Investment Fund 2018, Act 897, Energy Sector Levies Act 899, Ghana Cocoa Board Act 1984, and the PNDC Law 81 and its amendments. Earmark Funds Capping and Realignment Act, Act 947, PPA Act, Act 663 and its amendment with Act 914, Get Fund Act 581, Fiscal Responsibility Act and an incorporated into Comprehensive Public Financial Management Act, Revenue Administration Act 2016.
So of all the 10 acts you mentioned, the Income Tax Amendment Act 2023, Act 1096, that gave birth to the sport betting tax, is not part of it.
As a lawmaker, is there no act in the list that he submitted that makes provision for it?
No, the act that gave birth
it's
to
an
that
explicit
is
act.
an explicit act.
Okay.
So for the Finance Minister to tell Parliament that these are the acts I'm seeking amendments to help me introduce or cause a change in something that is already there, and we don't see the act that gave birth to the sport betting tax, can you convince me the minister was really interested in abolishing the sport betting tax? So I can tell you that in this budget document I'm holding, you can read from page 1 to the end. It is never stated anywhere in this budget that the minister wants to abolish the sport betting tax. If you go through this document from page 1 to the end, there isn't a single line that gives indication that they are going to abolish the sport betting.
But his statement, albeit one that has created some confusion, if indeed it comes down to a matter of semantics and misnaming, does that stop him?
No way. So all that we are saying is that, look, he has to come clear and let the people of Ghana know that, oh, maybe I made a mistake. It was a typo or maybe representation error. This is what I meant. So, Mr. Speaker, I am coming back with the Act, Income Tax Amendment Act, whatever, so that I'll have the opportunity to abolish the betting tax. We all want the betting tax to go, but you cannot hide behind deception. And
but why call it deception if you're also calling him to either, say this is what I meant, or clarify the situation?
It is deception because the language was clear. He said, Mr. Speaker, I will abolish the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings. Okay. If the sentence ends there, that's it. Then he says into brackets,
otherwise
known as tax. So the focus is on the 10% withholding tax on lotto winnings. Okay. That is what he meant. But maybe after we have exposed this and the pressure is coming from the base, they will think twice and come back to Parliament with that. So in effect, as I was saying, they are not abolishing 6 taxes, but rather they are abolishing 3. That is the E-Levy, the 1.5 withholding tax on gold exports. The COVID-19, we are implying that he will abolish it, but honestly, in the budget, he didn't say he will abolish it. Well. So in effect, if you want to be very strict on him, they abolish just 2 taxes. In effect, just 2, and then in return, they are introducing 4 new taxes, by extension 5, and I'll explain why I mean by extension. Okay. The first one they are bringing is the Growth and Sustainability Levy. This is a tax that is already there, that was introduced by the former Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta, but it is ending in 2025, because when the former Finance Minister introduced it, it was used to cure a certain problem for a certain period of time. So in the mind of government, this task must come to an end 2025. Now, Atoforsen is seeking to extend the sunset clause to say that I want to extend it to 2028. So for the period beyond 2025 to 2028 that they are extending it, it is a reintroduction. And once you reintroduce a tax, it is imposition. So that is a tax number 1. Okay. Then number 2, when Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta introduced that tax, he made the incidence as 1%. So the burden was 1%. Atoforsen says he's increasing it to 3%. So that is 2. Then 3, he is bringing he is doing the special import levy. Okay, so that is 3. And then he's introducing tax on non-life insurance. Remember I said President Akufo-Addo had placed VAT exemption on all non-life insurance. Right. So under President Akufo-Addo, anybody who went for a non-life insurance was exempt from VAT on that, yeah. Now Atoforsen is removing that exemption and by so doing imposing a VAT on non-life insurance. Okay, so that is 4. If you want to add the toll, road toll, because under Kenneth Ofori-Atta, road toll was 0 rated. So at some point nobody was paying to it. Atoforsen says he's doing a reintroduction. So if you add these 5, they are effectively removing 2 taxes and introducing 5 taxes. If you want to do a straight comparison and compare this with what President Akufo-Addo did, President Akufo-Addo in 2017 removed or abolished 17 different taxes. 17 from the Ghanaian people. So this is what we are talking about. Then the incoherence in what is preached and what is going to be practiced. President Mahama came on the wings of lean government. I will reduce the number of ministers, I will reduce the size of government, and I will do this. True to his words. At least, we have seen that the number of ministers has reduced. From about 80 or so, we have been to 100 and so before, and now to 60. It's commendable. Okay. I mean, he's done well by cutting the number of ministers.
And the ministry is also from 30 to 23.
But you see, like we have been saying, it is not just about the cutting. You can have less ministers and yet end up spending more, and you can have more ministers by being frugal in your expenditure and spending less. Whoever thought in his or her wildest imagination that after President Mahama had preached about the size of government of President Akufo-Addo and true to his words, cutting the number of ministers from whatever to 60, number of ministries from 30 to 2022, whoever thought that his expenditure would be far more than what President Akufo-Addo spent? First and foremost, in the entire 2024 appropriation, and here I'm talking about actual, not projected.
That's right.
President Akufo-Addo ended 2024 by spending 250 billion cedis of the Ghanaian taxpayers' money. Overall, 250 billion. Today, President Mahama, who says he is having less ministers, less ministries, less size of government, less size of office of government machinery, presidency and everything, is seeking to spend 290 billion cedis. If you said that Akufo-Addo did over expenditure and spent 250 billion, and you want to cut cost, you want to cut expenditure, as they have been saying, why are you seeking to spend 290 billion cedis? And let me provide some data from the budget statement to you that will shock Ghanaians and will shock everybody. You see, when the budget is presented, the speech will be read by the minister. But what is important are the tables and the appendices in the.
So which table are we looking at now?
So we are looking at Appendix 4A, page 139 of the budget statement. And this is it. I mean, if your cameras will want to capture it. Now, if you look at Appendix 4A, page 139 of the budget statement, it tells you how much President Mahama wants to spend at the Office of Government Machinery in terms of compensation of employees, goods and services, CAPEX. Now, it is important to note that for the whole year 2024, how much President Akufo-Addo spent at the Office of Government Machinery, which is largely the Office of President, on salaries, allowances, per diems, honorariums, all of that was 326 million cedis. And I remember Atoforsin very well making noise that what is President Akufo-Addo going to use all that money for? It's just chop for boys at the Jubilee House, party food. So they made all kinds of noise in the ears of Ghanaians that Akufo-Addo is spending 326 million cedis at the office of the president. They said he was using it for his private jets and all of that. Today, President Mahama through Atoforsin is going to spend not 500 million cedis, not 800 million cedis, not 1 billion, not 1.5 billion, not 2 billion, but 2.7 billion cedis on allowances, per diems, honorariums, salaries of people at the office of the president. How can you say Akufo-Addo was recklessly spending the taxpayers' money at the office of the president when he spent 326 million in 1 year? And you, who say you are cutting down the number of ministers, the size of government, you are going to spend 2.7 billion cedis. This is in the budget. Now, if you go to the breakdown of this, under this Office of Government Machinery,
that's right,
we have what we call, that is at the Office of the President too. We have the Research Department at the Office of the President. That is what Dr. Isaac Osu-Mensah used to head. I'm sure Dr. Isaac Osu-Mensah will be crying that Akufo-Addo cheated me because he was there, nothing. Now, under the Lee government, President Akufo-Addo is going to, President Mahama is going to spend 50 million cedis, okay, in the research department at the Office of the President. This is a department with one head, with maybe 2 or 3 assistants in one office. He's going to spend 50 million cedis to buy A4 sheets.
That's on goods and services.
Yeah, to buy A4 sheets, to buy printers, to buy pens, to buy those things. 50 million cedis. And his capers, they are going to buy Land Cruisers and all of that for 3 or 4 people. 20 million cedis. So at the research department of the Office of the President, President Mahama is going to spend 70 million cedis in 1 year on just 3 or 4 people. Just like that. Okay? Their salary is not included. Yeah. This is just A4 sheets, pens and papers and all of that. Now look at this. Government communication at the Office of the President. This is Felix Ofosu-Kwakye and Shamima Muslim. They are the 2 people. Let's say they have
a few others.
Let's say they have 2 or 3 assistants, making it 5. This is how President Mahama intends to spend. Goods and services for Felix Ofosu-Kwakye and Shamima Muslim. It's 8.8 million Ghana cedis.
On goods and services.
On goods and services. For them to buy newspapers, for them to buy pens, for them to, buy internet data, go online, read what is on Ghana Web, and all of that. 8.8 million cedis. And then, capers. The Land Cruisers, the saloon cars of Ofosu-Kwakye and Shamima Muslim and co will be using 70 million Ghana cedis. In effect, totality, President Mahama is going to spend 78.8 million cedis on Felix Ofosu-Kwakye, Shamima Muslim, and their assistants at the Office of the President.
And this is still minus compensation, right?
Exactly. When President Akufo-Addo had Ministry of Information, you can ask Ojo Oponkroma or Fatima Abubakar. The entire budget of the Ministry of Information was not up to 20 million. Now you tell us, you want to reduce costs, and so you have taken away the Ministry of Information, but created Office of Government Communication at the Presidency. And how much you want to spend on the Office of Government Communication is in excess of the total budget of about 4 ministries under President Akufo-Addo. Because I can tell you, Ministry of Information, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Chieftaincy, and all of that under President Akufo-Addo, if you combine their budget, it is not up to the 70 million 1 or 2 persons are going to spend under President Mahama. So this is what President Mahama is going to do with the taxpayers' money. And what is so shocking is that once Akufo-Addo was spending in relative terms this mega amount of money, he was able to navigate the troubles and the challenges Ghana went through, i.e. the triple whammy, the banking sector cleanup exercise, the COVID-19 problem, and then the Russia-Ukraine conflict or war that resulted in the skyrocketing of prices across the globe and all of that. In all these difficulties, President Akufo-Addo spent something that is totally anemic, quite lower than what Mahama seeks to spend. And yet, President Akufo-Addo was able to grow this economy in real terms with a real GDP growth of 5.7%. 5.7% from what Mahama left him at 3.4%. On top of that, for the first time in the history of this country, President Akufo-Addo was able to grow the total assets of the country in monetary terms. That is reflected in the nominal GDP. He grew it to 1.2 trillion. Never in the history of this country have Ghana reached 1.2 trillion in terms of nominal GDP. When Mahama was living, he left Ghana 219 billion nominal term cedis in terms of GDP. Akufo-Addo has done 1.2 trillion. You can take the 200 billion on top of the 1 trillion, and that takes care of what Mahama left us. Akufo-Addo has given you a whopping 1 trillion cedis of GDP. Then again, President Akufo-Addo has left for President Mahama $8.9 billion in terms of our gross international reserves, which serves as a shock absorber to our currency and the country. Now, if you come to inherit somebody who has laid this solid foundation for you, what will Ghanaians expect? Ghanaians expect that even you who are saying you're going to cut costs, you're going to do this, you're going to ensure prudence, you must grow bigger than what Akufo-Addo left. But today, after all these expenditure lines that I've mentioned together with others, and the attempt to seek to spend more than what Akufo-Addo spent, Atufosin says 2025 real GDP, they will reduce it from the 5.7% President Akufo-Addo left to 4.4%. How sensible is this? You came to meet a growth of 5.7. Yabo brako yenim, is that not it? We strive to grow and progress. So everybody expects that President Mahama will be able to grow this economy beyond what President Akufo-Addo left, because when Akufo-Addo came, he also grew it beyond what he left, which was 3.4%. Now Akufo-Addo has left with 5.4%. You are telling us in 2025, although you are going to spend more money, okay, than what Akufo-Addo spent, you are going to reduce the growth of this country from 5.7% to 4.4%. Then again, the gross international reserves that President Akufo-Addo left for you at $8.9 billion, which takes care of 4 months of our import cover, you are saying you are going to reduce that to 3 months of import cover. So I want Ghanaians to see themselves in the budget and decide whether or not what Atufosin presented on behalf of President Mahama is something that is going to ensure the progress of this country or a retrogression. And some of the things they also said, you remember that President Mahama had promised that they were going to, establish a women's development bank. Remember that?
That's right.
Okay. Now he comes to Parliament and says that they have allocated, is it 51 million?
Yeah, I think it's 51.8 or so million.
To establish the Women's Development Bank. Then you ask yourself, what is the minimum capital required for the establishment of a bank? We know it to be 400 million Ghana cedis. So how can you establish a bank with 51? Then quickly,
it doesn't matter that that was specified as seed money.
No, but seed money, that's why seed money should be able to establish. You want to establish the bank because the seed money is never the seed money is 1/4
required.
So how are you going to establish it? Are you going to do that over a period of time to say I'm going to use 4 years, so every year I'll do a seed money of this amount? Is that what he's saying? That is not clear to us.
Okay.
If you want to establish a bank, know the minimum capital requirement and tell us that the minimum capital requirement is 400 million or S amount. I am going to start building foundation, casting concrete, whatever, doing this up to this level with 50. And then I leave it until I get another money. So that people sit down and don't expect much from you. Okay? But if you say, because we don't establish a bank in a piecemeal approach, you know that. Yeah. Once you set out to say that I want a license from Bank of Ghana, okay,
you must satisfy all of those.
You must satisfy all those requirements. So it is not about seed capital, because once you go to Bank of Ghana and you say that I have established a bank, I want license, Bank of Ghana will say, let's see how much you have in your accounts. The minimum capital required is 400 million. You cannot tell Bank of Ghana, oh, I'm putting a seed money of 50 million. Give me the license and later I'll build on that. It doesn't happen that way. So they have fallen short of that. So it tells you they are not truly committed to establishing a commercial bank or of the sort for women, as so to speak. Perhaps they are thinking about some savings and loans or microfinance institution. They should call it as such and let people reduce the expectation. And yesterday I heard something that was shocking. I heard Shamima Muslim, of course, he's having a huge budget, so she can talk, saying that they meant a development finance bank and not commercial bank. Okay. And that they qualify under that. But let me expose it. I have this document with you, Bank of Ghana. This is Bank of Ghana Notice BG/GOV/SEC/2021/204. Directive on license and capital requirements for the development finance institutions pursuant to the Development Finance Institutions Act 2020, Act 1032. So all development finance institutions, i.e. banks that are not commercial banks but come under development finance institution or development banks, have different minimum capital requirements relative to the commercial banks. And let me go to page 3 and read. This is page 3, paragraph C. It says minimum paid up capital and application processing fees. And there are 3 different classes of the development banks or development finance institutions. Class 1, wholesale development finance institution. License will require an initial minimum paid up capital of 800 million cedis. This is class 1.
Okay, that's wholesale.
Class 2, retail development finance institution. License will require an initial minimum paid up capital of 600 million cedis. Okay. Then class 3, guarantee development finance institution. License will require an initial paid up capital of 300 million cedis. And then it says that for class 4 development finance institution license, the initial minimum paid up capital will depend on the development finance activities that the development finance institution intends to undertake, into brackets combinations of wholesale, retail, and guarantee. And at that point, they have divided it into 4. Class 4A, Class 4B, Class 4C, Class 4D. Now, Class 4A, wholesale, retail, and guaranteed development finance institution. When you combine all the 3 classes, this will require an initial minimum paid up capital of 1.2 billion cedis.
So essentially, none of the development financial institutions by Bank of Ghana's rules
is satisfied.
Is satisfied with the 51 million. Okay.
So now, I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, allow me a moment. I'd like to share this bit of information. It's a response by Felix Kwachiofosu on the concerns raised by the minority about the Office of Government Machinery and the expenditure. I just want you to take a listen and let's have a chat around that.
Well, since President Mahama assumed the position of President of the Republic of Ghana, and he started forming his government and started keeping faith with the people of Ghana and fulfilling his promise to operate the leanest and most efficient government in the history of the Fourth Republic. Elements within the opposition have sought to spread falsehood and engage in deliberate disinformation with a view to whittling away the goodwill that President Mahama has naturally, won from the people of Ghana because of the way that he's doing things. So first it started with the Honorable Apujinapo, who claimed that President Mahama has appointed 100 presidential staffers and is only seeking to make up for the shortfall in ministers by appointing more presidential staffers. Then lately, Dr. Gideon Boako, who incidentally has worked in the office of the president before, under the office of the vice president, went out to spread gratuitous falsehoods about the composition of the staff of the office of the president and the monies allocated to the office of the president. Now, the office of the president is made up of a number of entities. So there's what we call the General Administration, Office of the Chief of Staff, Vice President Secretariat, Cabinet Secretariat, Press Secretariat, and then Policy Coordination and Delivery Units. These are the units that make up the Office of the President. In addition to these units, there are other government agencies that fall under the Office of the President. So together we call them Office of Government Machinery. Under the MPP, the Office of Government Machinery had 26 entities. That is, if you add the units under the Office of the President. That number was made up of a number of agencies. The list is before me, I could go through all of them. But they created new entities. Coastal Development Authority, Middle Belt Development Authority, IPEP, the one that used to be headed by Howard Kumsin as a whole ministry before it was moved under the Office of the President. And then there's also the Northern Development Authority, the Zongo Development Fund, and what have you. Because President Mahama reduced the number of ministries from 30 to 23. Some agencies that used to operate under the collapsed ministries have been moved to the Office of the President for budgetary purposes. Because when the budget is being prepared, the staff of those agencies have to be accounted for. That accounting has to go through a mother agency. So for instance, there was a Ministry of Information, which was headed by a minister. It had 76 directors and staff, civil servants. That ministry doesn't exist anymore. So all the directors and civil servants have left. There's no such thing. Some of them have been reassigned. Now the president appointed me as his spokesperson and Minister of State for Government Communication. That means that all the agencies that used to work under the Ministry of Information have had to come under my jurisdiction. There are some of them who are state-owned enterprises, like the Ghana Publishing Company Limited, Graphic Communication Group, and New Times Corporation. They are state-owned enterprises, so now they fall under SIGA. But the Ghana News Agency, for instance, the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, the Information Service Departments, and what have you, fall under me. Now, the staff of these organizations are civil servants who have to be paid. Let me add that President Mahama has not employed a single civil servant in addition to what he came to meet. So the civil servants under these organizations, their salaries have to be catered for. In addition to these three organizations that I've mentioned, because the National Security Ministry was collapsed, now the National Security Council, or the National Security Secretariat, the Research Department, which is an arm of the Security and Intelligence Services of Ghana, the National Signals Bureau, and the National Intelligence Bureau, which used to be called the BNI, all now operate under the Office of the President. So it is the salaries of these staff that are now being catered for under the Office of the President.
Right, so you're still listening to the Asaase Breakfast Show. It's 19 minutes past 9, and we have in the studio with us the Deputy Ranking Member of the Finance Committee of Parliament and Member of Parliament for Tano North, Gideon Boako. Now, you heard Felix Kwachofosu. In fact, he even mentions you directly. It says, with your experience, having worked in the office of the Vice President, you'd have understood some of the budgeting allocation better. What he's saying sound?
He's just beating about the bush. Now I'm having the budget with me.
Okay.
All the people and the offices he mentioned, that their salaries and allowances and per diems are inclusive of the 2.7 billion. It's a big lie. You have the document in front of you. All of them have been allocated their own budget in terms of salaries. And in fact, if you look at the green column on top,
for the complete administration,
when you add all of them together, the ones that he's trying to take away, when you add all of them together, it comes to 9 billion. It is only the one that goes to the Office of Government Machinery. Okay? That is 2.7. And you see there's another line. Office of Government Machinery, Headquarters and Agencies. That one is also 2.7 billion. So those agencies is talking about that are not captured here. Theirs is also 2.7 billion. When you add all of that to what is down there, Office of Head of Civil Service and all of that, National Media Commission and everything comes to 9 billion. When I was talking, I was even charitable. I didn't lump all of them together to talk about the 9 billion. Did you mention me talk about the 9 billion? No. But I singled out the Office of the President. That one is the 2.7 billion. If you add all the ones he's talking about, it comes to 9 billion for allowances, for per diems, for salaries, and all of that is what we're talking about. But so this attempt to,
the line you refer to on this Appendix 4A, which is MDA expenditure allocation. So the total amount is 9 billion and 21 million and some 992,000. Now, the next line, which is number 1, talks of 2,711,100,000 and 839. Now it says of which OGM headquarters and agencies. Doesn't that mean that of which means it covers all Office of Government Machinery, headquarters and agencies?
You know, like he said, every president has a way of bringing some new agencies or collapsing a ministry. And so once you collapse a ministry like Ministry of Information, you understand, the agencies and the Ministry of Information, where do you put them to? You can find a way to bring them to the Office of Government Machinery. You get that? So all those agencies like he was mentioning, their budget is also indicated here. And when I was talking about the 2.7 million, I didn't even add those ones, because
but that figure is it's actually a repetition of the same amount. So of which is basically giving you because if you look at the item 1 and its breakdown, for example, on the goods and services column, you'll note that the total for goods and services for Office of Government Machinery is in the region of 847 million and some bit. Now then the next line, which is now shows what goes to Council of State. So the next line says of which government makes up for Office of Government Machinery, headquarters and agencies is 283 million. Then Council of State. So if you summed up everything
in that column,
you'll end up with no. It will come to everything in that column. But if you take item 1 and its breakdown of OGM headquarters, agencies, Council of State, National Security, Research Department, and Government Communications, if you sum those up, it should bring you to the 847 million figure.
That is why when you come to, I think, the second column, under Council of State, they didn't put any figure there.
So you'll notice that there is no
Exactly.
breakdown of for Council of State National Security. So all of that is lumped into
the 2.7 billion.
Right.
Exactly.
So if there's anything, should we not be calling for more clarity on what is going to go towards national security, the research department? Because the compensation for research department has not been, all they've done is to say,
that's what I'm saying,
this is the lump.
The research department
Yes.
is at the office of the president.
Exactly.
It's part of it.
Okay.
The government communication is at the office of the president. It's part of it. And then the Council of States is part of it.
Okay.
And then so these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
The ones that you don't have indication.
The
These are
indications
5.
for,
Research department, communication, all of that sum up to the 2.7 billion.
Okay.
And so when he was talking, he said under President Akufo-Addo, we had the development authorities, Middle Belt, Coastal Development Authorities, the Northern Development Authorities.
That's right.
And then we have the Ministry of Special Development Initiative. All of them also came under the Office of Government Machinery. That President Akufo-Addo spent 326 million. Today, they say they are scrapping all of that. So they are no more there. So that expenditure is even gone. And yet, and mind you, under President Akufo-Addo, we still had research department at the presidency, right? We had the government communication, Eugene, Fatima, and all of those people there. When you added all of them, their compensation to the development authorities, to the Minister of Special Development, to the Minister of State at the presidency. You remember we had some ministers of state at the presidency.
Yes.
The office of the senior minister. It was also under the office of what? Of the presidency. When you added all of them, how much they spent was 326 million. If indeed you say you want to cut costs and you are reducing the numbers, and you have done away with Minister of Special Development Initiative, you've done away with Office of Senior Minister, you've done away with Coastal Development Authority, you've done away with Middle Belt Development Authority, you've done away with Northern Development Authority, and all those. You remember, we also have the One District, One Factory Secretariat under the Office of the President. You've done away with all of this, and still you want to spend 2.7 billion. Whilst when under President Akufo-Addo, all these agencies and heads were there, they spent 326 million. What are you talking about? Okay, so that's the reality, and they can't have any proper justification for this kind of expenditure. It doesn't make sense at the time that you are crying heaven and earth that people are poor, we don't have money for schools, we don't have this, and look at the money you want to spend on chop at the presidency. Everything is going to the presidency. If you add the entire compensation, okay, at the Office of Government Machinery, everything together, you add that of the Electoral Commission, Public Services Commission, all of this, you add everything together, you're going to 9 billion. But that is not even the figure I'm talking about. Talking about 2.7 billion.
billion of the 9 billion.
Of the 9 billion.
Going to Office of Government Machinery.
Yeah.
Right. Now, let's get into a couple of things. Now, I read a very interesting story in which the Member of Parliament for Okaikwe, Okaikwe Central, Patrick Bama, is quoted as saying that the statement that was made by the MP for Karga and the former Minister of Finance was a miscommunication.
He didn't say that.
He didn't?
No, you know how portals have a way of misrepresenting what people said. He has come out.
Please give us some clarity on.
No, he didn't say that. He has come out to indicate he never said anything of that sort. I mean, he explained what exactly Dr. Amin meant, and I think Ghanaians understand that. Atoforsen either deliberately decided to create that confusion by merging or bringing two different taxes in one sentence to indicate that they are one and is going to abolish the withholding tax on lotto winners. I think it was deliberate, okay? Because they wanted to satisfy the stakers of the sport betting tax to say that we've said we're going to remove it. But in effect, what he presented in the budget as he is going to remove is the 10% withholding tax on lotto winning. So, I mean...
something which was not implemented.
Exactly. Patrick Boamo explained that. I mean, there was a twist to that headline.
Okay. Yes, all right. I think in a minute, I just want your quick thoughts on the freeze on employment in the public sector. I mean, the question for me is that is this not just a continuation of something that started under your administration?
Did you ever hear in the 8 years of President Akufo-Addo that there was a day that employment in the public sector was frozen? That language is not known to us. The only time we remember that language was the first or the second IMF program that the NDC entered into under President Mills of Mahama. When President Akufo-Addo came, we were with IMF. There was no freeze on employment. They come and they are saying that we are going to freeze employment. It's their own cup of tea. The Ghanaian young people are watching them, are listening to them. At least we know that there are still people who are unemployed. But President Akufo-Addo, in his wisdom and the grace God bestowed on him, was able to create at least some 2.3 million jobs, verified jobs, for young people in this country. We appreciate the fact that there are still people out there who are not employed. President Mahama has a responsibility to also add up to the numbers that were employed by President Akufo-Addo. The biggest disservice he would do to the Ghanaian people is to say that we are freezing employment in the public sector. This is not what Ghanaian people want. People are coming out of school every month, every year. They need job. We appreciate that you cannot absorb everybody, but do your best to create jobs so that some can get some to do. The 2.3 million who got jobs under President Akufo-Addo, they are satisfied. There are others who don't have jobs. So Mahama, come and create, say, 4 million or 3 million. Take away from the stock who are unemployed. Let another government come and continue. Remember, the unemployment stock is not static. It keeps growing. So if you live even 1 year, 1 month, 6 months without job creation opportunity, what you are doing is that you are letting it remain static and you are increasing the stock that is unemployed, because every month new people get into the workforce bracket, and they are qualified to do job. They are able and willing, but don't have jobs. Okay. So anytime a government slacks on his or her capacity to create job for a week, for a month, we are increasing the number of people who are unemployed. President Mahama should do his best to create more jobs than President Akufo-Addo did, because President Akufo-Addo created more jobs than he came to inherit. So we want him to add on. The challenge I see is that they cannot do it, because if you can create more jobs, it depends on how well your economy is growing, especially in the public sector. This is the case. A president has come to see an economy that is expanding by 5.7% in real terms, by 1.2 trillion in nominal term, GDP terms. And he says he's going to reduce the growth of the economy. It's just like having a farm size and you want to till. If you have 1 acre of a farmland and you need laborers and you can employ 10 laborers, if the acreage reduces to 5, it wouldn't make sense to put 10 laborers on 5 acre, whilst it can be more effective to do so on 10 acre because of the diminishing marginal productivity. You understand? If you put more and more labor on a face, area, the additional productivity that the added labor adds to it keeps on reducing. Yeah. So no farmer will tell you that I need 10 laborers on 5 acres and say I need the same 10 laborers on 10 acres. So the more you're able to grow the size of your economy, the more it gives you space to employ more. Now, if you are a young person and you're listening to me, and after listening to this budget, you are in a confused state whether or not President Mahama will be able to create more jobs than President Akufo-Addo did. The evidence that they cannot do is the fact that they are seeking to reduce the size of the country, of the economy in terms of wealth. And once the economy cannot grow beyond what President Akufo-Addo created, it doesn't make economic sense for them to create more jobs because productivity may not even reflect. So you are not likely to have your expectations met.
Okay.
On top of that, they are seeking to increase cost on Ghanaians. Remember, he said they are going to increase gas prices to companies that provide electricity to us using gas. Now, if you increase the cost of gas to a power producing company, what do you want the company to do? To pass on to electricity consumers. And the minister said something intriguing. He said that they are going to adjust electricity prices every 3 months. So under this government, you should expect to see that in every 3 months, your electricity prices go down or increase. And we know what governments do. Governments' inertia to reducing electricity prices is common for everybody to know. They are not going to reduce it. They are rather going to increase it. So every 3 months, the government that is not providing you jobs, the government that is not expanding the economy, is rather going to slap you with higher electricity tariffs in every 3 months. And this is common with the NDC because this is what they did in their first previous administration. President Akufo-Addo came in 8 years of President Akufo-Addo's government. 5 years out of the 8 years, President Akufo-Addo never increased electricity tariffs for Ghana. Under President Millicent Mahama, 8 years of the administration, 7 out of the 8 years, they increased electricity tariffs. So quickly to run you through this data, just that one.
Yeah, in 30 seconds, we have
yes.
to wrap up.
In 2009, 2009, there was no increase in electricity tariffs. 2010, the NDC increased it by 89%. 2011, they increased it by 10%. 2012, they increased it by 7.4%. 2013, the NDC increased it by 58.9%. 2014 by 28.4%. 2015, in the heat of doing so, they increased electricity tariffs by 91%. 2016 by 10%. So 7 years out of the 8 years, the NDC increased electricity tariffs. Cumulatively, they increased it by 294%. Look at what President Akufo-Addo did. In 2017, President Akufo-Addo never increased electricity tariffs. In 2018, he reduced it by 17.5%. In 2019, President Akufo-Addo increased electricity tariffs by 17.46%. In 2020, President Akufo-Addo never increased electricity tariffs. In 2021, President Akufo-Addo never increased electricity tariffs. In 2022, President Akufo-Addo never increased electricity tariffs. In 2023, he increased it by 51%. In 2024, 6.4%. In totality, cumulative sense, 57%, as against 294% under the NDC. So they have come back again with increases in electricity tariffs. At this time around, they say they will do that every 3 months. This is for Ghanaians to judge.
Absolutely, and we're grateful. We'll end on that. Thank you very much, Gideon Boako, MP for Tano North and Deputy Ranking Member, Finance Committee of Parliament. We're grateful for your time. Thank you all for joining us.